Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Toyin Umesiri, and welcome to my live show where I bring you inspiration, business coaching, life coaching around entrepreneurship and international trade as well. Today's topic is really strategies to advance US exports to Africa. So, how do you increase US exports to Africa? That's what I'll be sharing today. So, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining from. Good evening. There are places where it's already evening already as well. So, for those watching live, feel free to drop a comment and let me know where you're joining from. And those on Clubhouse, I want to welcome you as well. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. So, yes, my name is Toyin Umesiri. Again, I'm the founder and CEO of Nazaru and the Trade with Africa Business Summit and Network. So, today, again, I'm bringing you insights and strategies on how to increase US exports to the African continent, right? So today I'm not going to talk about why Africa. If you followed me for a while, you already have those data. You should have. If not, look at my profile on LinkedIn and you can access some resources in terms of strategic positioning that Africa is going to play in the future of the world when it comes to international trade. From a geographic standpoint, from international trade standpoint, there are several things happening on the continent and it's the next economic frontier. So today I just want to dive deeper based on requirements and questions that I've received over the years. I just want to share a few nuggets of insights around how to increase US export. I see Dr. Nimrod saying good morning, good night from Israel. Thank you so much. Dr. Nimrod has also served as one of my executive speakers at the Summit, Trade with Africa Business Summit. He's an expert in agriculture supply chain. So good to see you. Thank you so much for joining today. So, yes, the first thing I want to talk about is that depending on the stakeholder that you are, what I've seen is that different stakeholders have different interests on the continent. Different stakeholders behave differently based on their own interests. And so, depending on if you're an exporter, which today's conversation is around you, or you're a government resource, government agent, or you're a consultant, or you're a knowledge expert, or an analyst writing research paper on Africa, what I found is that people come to this conversation with different perspectives. The other thing I see within the context of business, because one of the drivers of the work that I do is really engaging with business leaders, right? Around immersing Africa within the context of business, not just, policy or diplomacy or aid or all of those things that we all know happens, whether it's, emergencies and crises and different things happening on the continent, right? It's a continent of billion and one people, and it's projected to double to 2.2 billion in a couple of years, right? So the next 30 years, the landscape is going to be largely shaped by the continent of Africa, just as we've seen Asia, China, over the last 20, 30, 40 years really play a bigger play on the global market, right? So from a business standpoint, what I would say is depending on if you're a large enterprise, a medium enterprise, or a small enterprise. Now, the standard I'm using is US standard, right? So, really, technically, a small business in the US is large business on the continent, typically. But so I'm here in Chicago, and the metrics I'm using really is more along the lines of large enterprises, so Fortune 500 companies, medium sized businesses, and SME, small businesses. And by the definition, right, 250 K US dollars less. I think that's where SME, So check that out in terms of where you fall in. The reason that category I put the people we work into those three buckets is because the resources available to pursue expansion or exports on the continent looks different, right? So one thing I say is watch out for the Googles of the world, the Facebooks, the Twitters, right? Watch what they are doing, right? Because the large Fortune 500 companies, those particularly tech companies, because they lean heavily on data, they actually have to, they already know, like Twitter, Facebook, Google do not need anybody to tell them what's going on in Africa. Why? They actually have the data. They may not be sharing it with people, right? But Facebook already has data around internet penetration. Why? Because they know the people using their platforms. So they have platforms already where Africans, young Africans, imagine middle class on the continent. Excuse me. I'm glad I have water here. Usually I have tea, but today it's just water. So basically, when you think about Facebook platforms, Instagram, Meta, okay, let's stick with Meta, the metaverse. Okay, when you think about Meta and their platforms like Instagram and Facebook, right? They already have native data on how the continent and people on the continent are using their platform. They've seen the growth, they've seen the demand, and they are moving based on that. Amazon, the same thing, right? Google, the same thing. They know the search, where search is growing. They know where the needs of their platforms are growing. From Amazon with their cloud services, with their own even native shopping platform, they have the data. So they don't need to call anybody. Even if they need to call people, they're calling the World Banks of the world, which we also engage with. They're calling the IM, they're calling, multilateral organizations, and they're building relationships, and they're already moving. They're moving into place already. They don't need to announce anything, really. Where the challenge falls in are the medium and small businesses, right? Because the big businesses also they have internal teams. So big businesses also have strong, very, very strong internal groups of people that are experts that help them design their market penetration, market expansion strategies. I happen to know this because I served with the world's largest corporation. So I know when it comes to global enterprises and Fortune 500, they have the resources and the manpower. Now, they may need to tap into expert advice like myself, but they have resident experts that help them to expand, whether it's to Brazil or India or China. They grow because they have internal teams that look at their data and come up with strategies in terms of what they need to be doing the next 5 years. So watch out for that. Now, the medium and small enterprises do not have such resources. And the biggest challenge that I see, the biggest thing I say don't do is a lot of them, mid and small business. And if you fall into it, watch out for this. You cannot use news headlines to determine what you're going to do on the continent. Yes, you can take that data, use it lightly, but don't build your entire business strategy around basic news out there. Oh, this is happening in Uganda. Oof, you're reacting to headline. You have to go deeper than that. It's just like, for example, I'm here in Chicago. If all you're reading about Chicago is, oh, there's violence here, you're never going to do business in Chicago, because news, as they sensationalize all of these things in such a way that people are like, stay away from Chicago. Chicago is on the fire. And then nothing. No. But what you don't know is that Chicago is the third largest city in America. Next to New York is a financial district. Embassy, consulates. There's so much. It's an international city. When you think about connectivity to the rest of the world, airlines, all of those things. Wow, if all you're doing and the way you're judging Chicago is what you read in newspaper, you don't know much about Chicago. The same is true about Africa. Is that in a way, over the last 20, 30 years, news around the continent has been sensationalized, which is fine. I mean, there's a business, media is a business in itself. There's a business strategy around media and sales of sensational news and the war, famine, corruption, all of those things. There is an enterprise that benefits and reaps a lot of benefits from those news. Great. It's never going to stop. What I'm saying is, if you're a business leader, whether small, medium size, and large enterprise, and you are in a strategic position to build an expansion strategy for your company, If all you're doing and your judgment is going to be clouded, your judgment about what is happening on the continent is largely clouded by all those sensationalized news and headlines and this and that, you are never, I repeat, you're never going to be able to make the right strategic decision about this region of the world. Just think about China as well, because the news is always 5 to 10 years behind the actual reality, particularly when it comes to commerce. That's why even in the US, right? If you're a business, you subscribe to other types of journals and news. You don't just, yeah, we all read the newspaper and for us to know what's going on, but for you to then take that and then say, whoa, this is 100% true, and then I have to run my company based on all of that. That's where really you have to watch out for, right? That those are the things I say watch out for. So the first thing is, if you're a large enterprise, if you're a medium-sized enterprise, or if you're a small enterprise and you want to know deep dive the actual data around commerce and business opportunities and sector specific opportunities, you do not rely on news headlines. Do like be aware of what's going on, right? Because you need to also be understand the risk reward ratio of whether it's political shifts. So be aware of political shifts. And that's why I say, you want to make sure your basket, your portfolio is diversified on the continent. Don't build an entire strategy just around one country. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to set the groundwork on. And I see more people joining. Makiza Moore is joining. Where are you joining from? Thank you so much. Alvin Maha is joining. And also here on Clubhouse, I see Titi Lokwe and Coco. Thank you so much for joining today. So laying the first foundation is realize, where do you fit in? Are you a large enterprise with quote and unquote unlimited resources? I know, yeah, I just joke because you can play around. There's more resources. There's more analyst support. There's more data support when you're actually dealing with larger enterprises. I happen to know because I served in probably the biggest corporation in the world. So that's another story for another day. Is the fact that when you become an entrepreneur and you're used to the best of the best of the best in the world, and you become an entrepreneur with limited resources, you have to get creative, very, very creative. So that's another thing I'll share. Like on Wednesdays, I'll bring you insights around entrepreneurship, and then Tuesdays is more of trade with Africa. So watch out for that on this show. So the second thing I want to dive deeper in terms of the strategies to increase US exports to the continent is understanding if your product and service fall into B2C, B2B, or B2G. And that's the last thing I'll share today, looking at time. So B2B, B2C, B2G, right? So if your product is B2C, meaning consumers, mass retail, all of that, what you need to do, two things. I'll just share two things. There are several things, but top two things. Watch out for consumer data, right? It's not yet as mature as in the US because I come from retail and data is everything, right? We know so much. You have to know so much about your customers, right? The same thing is true. We happen to know some companies investing in data and particularly retail consumer data. I also founded the Retail in Africa conference and platform. We're growing that little by little. Hopefully in 2022, which is almost here, we can dive deeper into retail in Africa. We have key knowledge experts in that space. But so watch out for data, dive deeper into consumer data, right? And then the second top thing I would say you need to watch out for is, how are you going to design your distribution channel? Yes, right? Because largely on the continent, informal sector, informal trade, drives a lot of the volume transactions, right? It's largely informal. There's a lot of formalization on trade, particularly under the AfCFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So trade on the continent is being formalized as we see. But today, currently, and in the next couple of years, informal trade is still going to drive trade. So, how do you design your distribution channel? Do you want to work with local sales agents? Do you want to form strategic partnerships? All of those things. Those are the things you want to watch out for, particularly if your product or service is more of direct to consumer. If you're B2B, what do you need to do? Two, relationships, right? We only do business with people we know, like, and trust. And the same is true on the continent of Africa. People will not buy from you or partner with you or trade with you if they do not know you. So, how do you start inserting yourself in spaces where business leaders, business executives on the continent that can actually participate in international trade, right? You have to start building a strategy to make sure you are in the room, whether it's virtual rooms or physical rooms. It's actually why I host conferences and trade summits and events where we bring different stakeholders together, because we can all talk about trade all we want. But until until humans come together, get to connect and get to feel comfortable and understand what each one of us wants and desire and can offer each other. And then we also have the trade financing figured out, which is another topic, is that trade doesn't happen until people actually get in the room, virtual or physical rooms, and start engaging and seeing opportunities and exploring opportunities. And it takes time. It takes time for these relationships to become transactions. Everybody wants the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but guess what? All of the work, right? People want pot of gold. I get it. But all the things you have to do to get there is what I'm sharing as the strategies you have to apply. Okay. The other thing, I know I'm speaking really fast because I want to pack a punch in these sessions, right? And I'm speaking really fast, I know. So if it's B2B relationship, and then you also want to be strategic in terms of what types of relationship. Why? Because you want to make sure you're working with enterprises and leaders that can actually afford your services and your products, which is another entire topic. If you have questions about that, let me know. Because a lot of times people say, oh, Africa is this, Africa is that. I'm like, yeah, you're talking to the wrong Africans. I don't know about you. Just like in the US or anywhere in the world, you have categories, you have income brackets, you have purchasing power, you have all of those things. The same thing is true, which is back to what I said at the beginning. Like, if you're looking at the media, particularly the Western media, only shows you why. They only show you a particular segment on the continent. And then you, as a business person, how are you? You're seeing Africa through the lens of the poorest of the poorest of the poor on the continent. Why? Because media goes into the remote villages and they caption those images and then they show it and say, this is Africa. Or not for profit or charity will say, oh, they are poor. Why? They won't show you the 5-star hotels they stayed at. They won't show you when they're in the first class cabin of the airline. They won't show you when they're in restaurants eating the plush chickens and food, and when they're enjoying the best and the best of Africa. They're not going to show you that. But they have their mission and their agenda. They go into rural. They travel thousands of miles into rural Africa. They take those pictures, they take those footages, and then they show the rest of the world. And they say, oh, hungry people. I'm not saying those things don't exist. What I'm saying is that as a business stakeholders, you've not seen you've not seen the executive side of the continent. The Western media hasn't showed you. They've not showed you the types of people we engage with. They've not, right? So it's your job to find those people. Corporate Africa is real. Banks, manufacturers, they are real. They are there. They are there. You know, they're there. But media hasn't showed you, where deals and transactions in the billions of dollars are being closed. They are not going to educate you about that. It's your responsibility to get yourself educated. So that's why I'm not saying all of the things media shows you is not true. All I say is it's one side of the coin. right? Just like I used the analogy of example of Chicago. If all you're seeing is all the negative around Chicago, it's not that it's not true, but if that is the only thing you see, then you miss the other side of all the amazing things happening here in Chicago as well. The transaction, the business environment, the international platform, all the incredible things, the progression. Like Chicago is one of the most progressive regions in the world that I've seen, that I've experienced in my short time, having moved from Arkansas here. So, anyway, the same thing is true for Africa. And I just challenge you to get more curious, right? There is stock market, there are stock markets, there are banks. I don't even know why I'm talking about it. This is like a no-brainer, guys. Wake up. Wake up. A billion people cannot all be at war, cannot all be hungry, cannot all be whatever those storylines are. A billion people. Okay. So those are just the highlights I wanted to share today. I hope you found it helpful. There's also an Ask Toyin segment of my show, my daily show, running Mondays through Thursdays, where I bring you life coaching, inspiration, and business support around international trade and entrepreneurship. So I also want to ask those on Clubhouse any questions. There's also, if you want to participate, I actually have a link where it's on toyinumesiri.com/ask Toyin, where you can actually submit your questions ahead of time. And if you want it to be anonymous, just indicate that when you're submitting that question. So again, toyinumesiri.com/ask Toyin. You can actually submit your questions there, and I'll be happy to talk about your questions. And if you want it anonymous, just say Toyin, don't mention my name. So I see Jacqueline Brown. Good to see you. Who else? That's it for today. I want to keep this short and sweet. I want to pack a bunch of information. I hope this has been educative, right? So watch out for more. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this new format that I've developed. Again, Toyin Live Show, bringing you inspirations Mondays through Thursdays, 10 a.m. Central Time, which is Chicago time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And you're going to have motivation. So yesterday, I talked about imposter syndrome. So if you missed what I shared yesterday, please go to my YouTube channel and watch yesterday, which was around imposter syndrome. And what I did was to share my thoughts. It's not just what it is not what everybody tells you to do. They say fake it to make it. I say no. I say ask questions. You're just like a tourist in a new city finding your way. All you have to do is ask people around you and people that have been there before. And then you get to familiarize with new spaces, new opportunities as an entrepreneur or as a business leader in taking on a new role. So, so I spent over a decade in corporate America at Walmart. Boom, boom. I've also served as ambassador driving intra-African trade. Boom, boom. That's my award right there. And I get to engage with various stakeholders on my platform, Trade with Africa Network, Trade with Africa Business Summit. And now coming up December 4, Nigeria Investment Conference. So I'm getting every time I host this event, I'm super busy. Someone once asked me, how do you do it? Another day, maybe another topic for another day. So head over. Nigeria Investments Conference will be held December 4th, where we bring government stakeholders, business executives. Again, Africa's largest economy is Nigeria. What I tell people again, don't read headline. The news headline would tell you some things and not tell you the real stuff. So when I host events, it's that we bring the key stakeholders, investment officers and export promotion officers in the government. We bring them to say, okay, tell us the real. And it includes grants and programs and PPP, so public-private partnership, like all of these amazing things that it never sees the light of day on a newspaper. So they get to bring those insights to us. And then this event will be held on Nazaru.trade, which is our 24-hour, 7 days a week platform where people connect, they do business, they access my training, masterclasses, masterminds, and events as well. So it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much again. I see Clubhouse. I'll be closing the room now. You can always watch the replays native to Clubhouse, or if you would like to see my video, you can head over to YouTube as well. So thank you so much, everyone. I also have a newsletter that goes out to over 20 some thousand people every week. So we're always bringing insights, resources, connecting our stakeholders and our community around the world to all the amazing things happening. So thank you so much. This is Toyin Umesiri. It's been an amazing pleasure to bring this information to you all. God bless you and see you again tomorrow. Bye.